My name is Amanda Donald, and my research study was titled The Effect of Goal Setting on Reading Fluency in the Middle Grades. I am a middle school reading teacher, and I have been for over 4 years. And one of the main things I focused on was students' reading fluency. We implemented a literacy intervention in which we focus on fluency skills. I did this because in the 2015-16 school year, our district's goal was to show for all students in grades 7 through 12 to show at least 1 year's growth in reading. And in that year, only about 52% of our students did show growth in reading. Therefore, the problem was that I needed to help come up with some type of a reading intervention that would help improve reading scores and reading proficiency, knowing that students that fall behind in reading have a very hard time catching up to their peers who are scoring at grade level. So I decided that I would focus on reading fluency and interventions that helped improve fluency. Therefore, the next step and the next piece of my presentation was that I reviewed a lot of literature on past studies of reading fluency and reading proficiency. Simply stated, students who are performing below reading proficiency levels have to receive some intense reading interventions. Students that are deficient in reading need to be a part of a research-based intervention to become successful. In 2011, the National Assessment of Educational Progress stated that the reading scores in 2011 were only 1 point higher than in 2009. Reading fluency is a critical skill in grasping meaning from text. If students cannot read fluently, they can't gather any meaning from text because they spend so much time decoding words instead of reading fluently and gleaning meaning from what they've read. Simply stated, fluency is the ability to read with speed, accuracy, and proper expression. And as I said previously, if they cannot read fluently and they spend time decoding words, then they are not gaining meaning from what they're reading because they are consistently spending time on words instead of the entire passage of what they're reading. The first study that I read about was an intervention with elementary level students in grades 3 and 5. It dealt with phoneme sequencing, and that also would deal with reading, spelling, and speech. The students that were within this did improve on their phoneme sequencing. However, their reading fluency did not show a significant improvement. The second study that I looked at was with an 8-year-old student that had already been through some intensive reading interventions and was still at risk for reading failure. Maura and Stacy in 2006 used an intervention and implemented it with modeling with practice. The student would listen and watch other readers model appropriate fluency. This 8-year-old student did show improvement in reading fluency. However, once again, this study was based within an elementary classroom and not within a middle school classroom. The third study that I looked at included video self-modeling and video peer modeling. It implemented 6 elementary students, once again, from 3rd to 5th grade. The reading instruction was not in the general education setting. It was in a special education classroom. These students would videotape themselves as well as they would watch some peer modeling. And although the data displayed that participants did show slight gains in reading fluency, the researchers were unsure that if it was it was students gaining in their self-efficacy that improved their reading scores, or if it was the actual intervention that improved their reading scores. The next study that I read about dealt with goal setting. And this was with 85 college students who were struggling academically. The researchers used an online goal setting intervention tool, and the results showed that those students who set a goal with the online intervention tool did show an increase in their academics, even if they did not set an academic goal and they set a personal goal. Once again, this goal setting intervention was set at the college level, and I didn't find a lot that dealt at the secondary level. I did find one, however, in which SMART goals were used, and within these, it was participants in a high school management class that had been given a project, a digital project in which they were working with partners. The researchers had one group of students use SMART goals to set a goal prior to completing their project. And the results showed that those students that did set a goal using a SMART goals worksheet did show a significant grade. Their grades did improve if they used the SMART goals. This was done in a high school class, and like I said, I didn't find a lot at the middle school level. So I figured that one of the gaps in the research was the middle school level. So using this, I based my research question on reviewing this past research, and my purpose statement or my research question started out by, would reading fluency be positively impacted by the implementation of a goal-setting intervention in the middle school grades? So my purpose statement became that I was going to determine if the implementation of a goal-setting intervention in the middle school classroom would positively impact reading fluency. The impact, I believe, of this study would be that I would have students show an increase in their fluency. Goal setting would influence reading fluency, therefore impacting their comprehension as well as the reading proficiency. I felt that if students set goals early in the school year, that would also influence their fluency, proficiency, and comprehension, and I would have the capability to monitor their progress more closely as the year passed. My methodology within this study was that I started with a quasi-experimental design. I used this design because I did not have the opportunity to select participants randomly. The principal in our school district, excuse me, sets the classes prior to the beginning of the school year. My participants were 53 seventh grade middle school students. I had 2 separate students within the classroom demographically. The students were similar in the percentage of females to males. There were 56% males and 44% females. I used the basic reading inventory by Johns. I use this for my progress monitoring. I implemented SMART goals worksheets, which was the basis of the study used previously that I saw within the high school classroom. I used my school requisition computer, my HP Pavilion, and I used the Microsoft Excel to record my data. So I began this at the beginning of the 2016-2017 school year, and it was implemented within my reading classroom. I had a control and a treatment group. We continued with the regular reading and reading intervention curriculums, and I implemented, of course, the SMART goals. In the first few weeks, we implemented the BRI testing, in which I had students, excuse me, in which I recorded their baseline data on fluency. I then began implementing the treatment, which was the implementation of SMART goals. Once those were implemented, we continued with the regular classroom curriculum, as well as students within the treatment group continuing with their SMART goals. The BRI treatment, once again, continued on biweekly. The treatment group was my independent variable, and the dependent variable was the words correct per minute. Because I had no control over the assignment of participants, there may have been some issues with the data. It might have been questionable. And however, the baseline BR tests were used for the control and treatment groups, and there were 6 BRI progress monitoring checks with many observations. I am certified with the BRI assessment, and I did score all of the assessments. So for data analysis, I used the BRI progress monitoring and the independent samples t-test. That was my statistical method. The independent samples t-test would compare the average of the 2 independent groups to conclude whether there was evidence that the related populations means were pointedly different, that there was a significant change from baseline to ending data. And the next piece of my presentation will be my results. So my hypothesis was that with the implementation of setting SMART goals, middle school students would show improvement in reading fluency. However, the evidence was not strong enough to support my hypothesis. There was not a significant change between my control and my treatment groups from baseline to ending data. The mean pre-treatment words correct per minute for my control group was 108, and my post-treatment for the control group was 125. My mean words correct pre-treatment for the treatment group was 112, and the mean post-treatment for the treatment group was 137. This figure does show the average increase in words correct per minute for the control and the treatment group, and you can see that there was a slightly larger increase with the treatment group. And however, I'm unsure if that would have been because we continued with the regular reading and intervention curriculum, or if it was because of the implementation of SMART goals. So the implementations, limitations, and recommendations for this study would be that students must have explicit fluency instruction, and that their fluency needs to be assessed on a regular basis. If students are not assessed on a regular basis and their fluency continues to decline, there will be a significant decrease in their reading proficiency. Some of the limitations to this design would be that my research design was quasi-experimental, and experimental design would have might have shown better results. My length of the study was very short. It was only 8 weeks. The type of goal intervention that was used, a SMART goal might not have been the best for this intervention. I didn't have time to train my paraprofessionals like I would have liked to, and my workspace was limited as well as interrupted quite a bit. So my recommendations would be to use an experimental research design. This would have improved the internal validity of this design and may have changed the results somewhat. I would like to see for future research to increase the amount of the study. The students in the treatment group were beginning to show an increase in their words correct per minute, and I feel with an increased study time that might have been improved more. Goal setting interventions, maybe research different types of goal setting interventions instead of just the SMART goal to see if those would have more of an impact on this research study. I would have, in previous or in future studies, I feel that individuals need to be trained for a longer period of time, and this would help because I'm unsure if maybe the results might have been skewed because it wasn't implemented with the fidelity that it needed to be. Students' reading fluency must be assessed on a regular basis. It needs to be done bi-weekly or weekly in order to see that students are either gaining in their reading proficiency or fluency, or if they are decreasing. So in closing, I felt that this study was very important and that I now have a basic understanding of what I need to do in order to increase my students' reading proficiency and reading fluency. I will continue with looking to which intervention would be the most impactful for students' fluency. And then hopefully that will continue to increase students' proficiency in reading assessments. Thank you.